Show channel here over at SubScribe. So a couple things are going on with Anita Sarkeesian, but you thought you'd never hear of her again. And Emmanuel Myberg from 404 Media, and this is a heck of a not safe for work. It's going to be the most reprehensible things imaginable. There's a heck of a title here. Well, I'll use euphemisms. It goes, credit card companies are hurting the future of video games. Gosh, those evil credit card companies. What are they doing? And then he goes in to discuss some of the things in the video games that he defends. If you're looking at your screen, you can read some of the things, which is going to be a challenge to get past the YouTube filters. And the problem with this topic is it involves absolutely horrible abuse of women and children. I've got to use euphemisms on YouTube or I won't get that $3.67. The précis is this is Weimar. Perhaps you've noticed, and you have feminists and the most broken coomer, though in this case this guy is in his 40s. Teenage boys defending snuggle fantasies so they can sit in their rooms and enjoy themselves to completion instead of going out there meeting girls and making babies the old-fashioned way. So this is feminism, where they're defending just the grossest type of things you can imagine, and including things that you would assume would be illegal, but for some reason are legal, things involving consent in video games and films and whatnot, where I can look at it and say, maybe this isn't a left or right or male or female issue. Can't we just agree to start by agreeing to keep this away from kids? I mean, surely we can agree on that, right? The left has this thing where it's oppositional defiance disorder, where you say something like, kids should probably be kept away from videos, games involving non-consensual snuggle type of things. Like you're teaching children these kind of things. It's like a group of sociopaths is creating these games is the first thing, and then another group of sociopaths is saying, no, this is fine for kids. I mean, this is like civilization ending event, and that's not hyperbole. You look at this kind of stuff. I can't say it on YouTube, but you can read the guy's articles. It's beyond Weimar. So they keep bringing up free speech, and that issue has always been analyzed by the value of the speech through the United States Supreme Court analysis, where the most important being the ability to criticize the government and societal issues, where political free speech would be absolutely key, while things like commercial advertising have a lower value and may have more restrictions against things like puffing, which was the start of them starting to restrict exaggerations for snake oil and whatnot. And everyone agrees that prawn is the lowest value speech. In fact, people are not even sure, and the analysis is not even sure if it really is speech so much as art, and even calling it art is kind of a stretch. But it is the absolute lowest value, and it's always been a razor-thin margin of whether it should be protected or not. But that doesn't even have to be the issue, because the issue can be like, well, what about just keeping it from children and analyzing, strict scrutiny for speech and time, place, and manner restrictions under a legal analysis. Prawn just has a very low value. And the value to society of keeping it away from children should be very high. And it's like, well, if you have to make it a little bit more difficult for adults to access, that's something that most people are gladly willing to go through. And yet there's these people who look exactly like you expect them to look, defending their torture prawn. And I'm not even saying keep it away from consenting adults. That's an entirely different argument, but I assume that everyone wants to protect kids and, put people who hurt them underground. But I assume wrong, because you can look around at this current dystopian present, because you have people who are sterilizing kids. Like, where have you been for the past 10 years if you haven't noticed that? Though I will say society is starting to back down from that, Europe a couple years ago stopped doing that to children, and then Kaiser Hospital just announced that they were not going to do that to those under 18. So Anita Sarkeesian of Feminist Frequency fame, infamous, defending prawn. So that's where feminism is now, where they defend the most. And the history of feminism is its own video, because they've become inclusive, multiracial, but unfortunately that has changed their values to valuing nothing, because they're not willing to tell different groups of people that they're wrong, which is how we got to where we are now in so many cases beyond feminism. So they're willing to virtue signal over Sydney Sweeney, and they say that she was wearing a pair of jeans, the Canadian tuxedo. It's jeans top and bottom, sexualizing herself because she's at the top of the food chain for them, blonde hair, blue eyes, and the media has slowly brainwashed them since post-war to hate European people. I will say that it started to backfire on them with the whole conflict overseas. So now feminism supports a evil industry controlled by parasites, where drug overdoses and self-deletion is just considered a normal part of that business, or literal prostitution, where they get deleted all the time by their johns. So the feminists blame all men, where they're comfortable mentioning the issue of being sex, the sexual binary, but they won't mention the specific ethnicity of the men, or if they don't have the guts for that, at least perhaps the ethnicity that is not responsible for doing that to these ladies. Because to them, sex is relevant because it pushes their narrative, while ethnicity or race is not, because it doesn't serve their interests. And people just accept that children have access to this most horrific stuff you can imagine, instead of saying, maybe we don't have to, maybe we can start handling this issue of adult content and at least try to keep it in adult hands and away from kids. And it just doesn't seem like a lot of people are concerned with that. Where I think of a lot of these things as matrix things, where people don't notice the woman in the red dress. Things that should get dare I say, violent response, torches and pitchforks, are just kind of accepted. Stuff that should be a Civil War level event, like sterilizing children, I can't think of anything worse than that, and yet for the past 10 years it's been almost totally accepted with very little pushback. The response to that should have been things, I can't say on YouTube that I used to say on the other platforms, or things like cuties on Amazon. That's how a slippery slope works. So instead of a Playboy from the very bushy 70s, you have children going online, seeing things that could have been filmed in hell with Moloch directing, and you wouldn't know the difference. And then they go on to abuse their girlfriends because they think these kind of things are normal, so they're not having good, high-quality relationships and pair bonding, and doing the most important thing they can do is make more little people. Instead, they're very isolated away from going out there and chasing after the real thing. Thing is, society is pretty much dependent on young men chasing women. That has been a key drive that keeps things going. And if you have an outlet that takes that energy away, like this stuff does, it's really a deeper issue. And there's like satanic forces at work to stop people from making babies. So they also support men taking over feminism, which, to be fair, as a movement seems to, I guess, finally be dead. It started to reach peak absurdity 10 years ago with men infiltrating it to be better women than women, and then Trump came along, and the left, the feminists, they just all lost their freaking mind when they saw Trump, and he was a shiny object. They all focused on him, though, what a paper tiger he turned out to be. So Anita doesn't care. Now, what happened to the audit of Fort Knox? I guess there's not going to be an audit of Fort Knox. Yeah, you don't want to know what happened to that gold? Maybe the 1971 Nixon decision to decouple from the gold standard was a mistake. But surely we should look and see what's in there. Not that it's relevant. Because if you can print money based on the full faith and credit of the Bank of thin air, then I guess it doesn't matter what actual metal you have in there. But I guess we're not going to audit Fort Knox or get an Epstein list or build a wall or have mass deportations or any of that. Anyway, so Anita doesn't care about feminism. It's just a way to make money from gullible teenagers who are now 10 years later, all those girls, the slut walks from 2015, are probably looking for a husband and wondering what is going on. Probably wondering why young men seem to be so broken and unavailable. And if they're smart and self-aware, why women are also broken and not available. And there's a thing on Twitter where these women are going out there and they're all dressed up and they're like, where are the men? Where are the men? And, how come the men aren't stepping up? And the men are going like, well, what's your body count? Like, where are the virginal women? Because that's what young men want. And the thing is, like, people trying to meet each other in their late 20s and 30s, that's already a decade. Like, as a society, we gotta get people back to meeting people in high school and getting married out of high school and having kids like your grandparents did at 18, 19, starting their families back then. Like, we need a total restructure of society, not people in their 30s, like, raising kids for the first time, because raising kids at 20 is a whole lot easier than raising kids at 30. Anyway, men and women are also broken, and if you're really self-aware, you look at why the nation is falling apart and who is responsible, and feminism is a part of it, and so is these adult videos, which have taken the place, now are adult games as well. It's all related. So she jumped on the feminist push and had a YouTube channel about the most developmentally disabled excrement imaginable, about tits and ass in video games, and how she didn't like them, except she didn't play video games and she didn't really care. It was just about the money for her. Then the channel switched to a podcast format of live streams, which means they've given up on the channel because podcasting is like the lowest no effort way to maintain a social media footprint for people in love with the sound of their own voice. It's kind of like the life cycle of a channel. But that is modern feminism. She's against tits and games, but totally supports prostitutes getting sodomized and just used and abused until their John ultimately kills them in a dark alley, though we won't mention the description of the John, because that is empowering to women to be addicted to drugs and have to resort to prostitution, instead of just having the balls to put your foot down and admit that prostitution's not good for men or women or for society. Neither are hard drugs. The mindless hedonism, all these things are bad, but putting rules and restrictions on things are what the far right-wing Nazi Christian Republicans do. And so in typical oppositional defiance disorder, if the right wing says, heroin, prostitution, torture, prawn type of things for children, not even saying what consenting adults want to get into, that's a different argument. But for children having access to this kind of thing, if the right says it's bad, then the left goes, oh no, we need to defend this. And I can look at it and go, we can just agree that this is just kind of generally bad. All of it, like this whole direction society is going in. Look at society now and look at it decades ago and they go, oh yes, feminism has made such strides. It really hasn't, though. Are you better off now? Are the women better off now? Are families better off now? Is society as a whole better off? No. By every metric, almost every metric, things are much worse. But it's it's the me society, which is how societies genocide themselves, and that's what you're seeing right now. So what has happened is these people push cultural Bolshevism to destroy society. Feminism's over 100 years old. They destroyed the family and marriage, pair bonding, relationships, encouraging women to be whores and lose their ability to pair bond, and also lower their value to men, and which triggers left-wing women quite a bit to think that they have to have value to men, but they do if they want to get married and have kids, because women control the sex, but men control the marriage. And society would be a whole lot better off if we tried to focus on lowering the age of marriage down to down to like the age of consent, 18 or 19 or 20 or something like that, when they graduate high school, like like your grandparents got married and started having kids at 19. Anyway, so this guy at 404 Media, Myberg, says that, well, yes, it's true, the games are struggle, snuggle, torture, incest, deletion, violent, prawn. He says do not have many defenders except for Myberg over here. But the struggle, snuggle, and incest games did not actually harm any specific person. Get in the wood chipper, buddy, after legal due process. That's like Moloch worshipping degeneracy right there. I mean, it harms society. You parasite. He looks just exactly like you'd expect someone who admits that this kind of stuff doesn't have many defenders, except for him defending it. And I'm not some prude to say like adults can't do whatever the hell they want. It's surely everyone could come together and say we should. The thing is, like, I kind of keep coming back to is like why more people aren't concerned about like keeping prawn out of the hands of kids. And like I said, this is not like 70s Playboy bush, like topless ladies just standing there kind of prawn. It's like it's made in hell. It's like Satan himself wrote the script for a lot of this stuff. And it's this whole interesting history as well. I think Black Pill covered it. I've covered it on BitChute and SubScribestar and whatnot. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.